Welcome to episode 3 of Between Two Rinks. I'm your host, Ace. Alongside me, Cam. How's it going, Cam?
Ace, doing well, man. Happy to be here, and it's actually my first time at Warrior Ice Arena, and this is a great event so far. Happy to see all the fans.
Yeah, we're really excited to be live here at Warrior Ice Arena for the Boston Bruins development camp. We've been invited by the team to participate and record live here at the Pucks and Brunch event, I believe is what it's called, for legacy season ticket holders for the Boston Bruins. So really cool to see all of these Bruins fans that have been here supporting the team for so long and being a part of this while we celebrate the new era of the Boston Bruins. So very, very happy to be here. We've got an action-packed agenda for you guys today, too. We're going to be talking a little bit about, once again, just for the folks in the building here that are interested, the story behind Between Two Rinks. We're going to be talking about the latest movement with the Boston Bruins draft class. We're going to be talking about dev camp stuff. We're going to be talking about free agency, which is coming up right around the corner. There's so many things to kind of go over. So, Cam, what do you say we just kind of dive right in?
Yeah, let's get right into it. It's going to be a great day, and like you said, a lot of stuff to talk about.
Excellent. So right off the hop, for those of you that are not familiar with us here at Between Two Rinks, our podcast was created to really kind of amplify those that are in the world of hockey itself. Not just Boston Bruins, but we're talking about parents that are driving between two rinks for their kids. We're talking about women's hockey. We're talking about NCAA hockey. There's so many stories that can be told about hockey, and what better setting than development camp to kind of talk about that, right? I mean, this is the culmination, what is the culmination of a journey for a lot of these kids that have finally been drafted or signed, and now they're being able to put on the NHL logo for their first time. And, while it's a culmination of one journey, it's the beginning of another one entirely too, right? It's a long road to actually become an NHL player. So really, really cool to be here and talk a little bit about that. And it's a good bridge of our brand and to the Boston Bruins dev camp. So I'm going to introduce myself first. I'm Ace. I am a beer league goalie. I'm a hockey dad. I'm a Bruins season ticket holder. I've been following the team for about 20 years now, I feel like. So, yeah, really, really happy to be here. Cam, introduce yourself.
So my name's Cam, and I'm the founder of Bruins Media. Shout out Bruins Media on Instagram Live right now. This is awesome. And I've been a lifelong Bruins fan and have been covering the team for about 4 years now. And, definitely have a passion for hockey. I come from a deep hockey family. My dad was a hockey coach growing up, and I just am excited to be here. And, man, it's a great opportunity and to talk about one of my favorite things, the Boston Bruins.
Yeah, and let's just kind of jump right in here a little bit and talk a little bit about the draft class. Actually, let's talk about Dev Camp here. So we did have the confirmation that every one of the Boston Bruins draft picks from this year are going to be attending Dev Camp, which is kind of impressive considering we drafted 2 Russians and they were already over here in North America. But I'll just kind of rattle through the list, and I'll ask your thoughts about some of the players that are more interesting to keep an eye out there on the ice today. So on forwards, we have Niels Bartholtson, Cole Chandler, David Deputy, Beckett Hendrickson, Matvey Kotkov, Dean Letourneau, Mason Markellus, William Moore, Jonathan Morello, Casper Nasson, Oscar Olson, Chris Pelosi, Cooper Simpson, Cole Spicer, Jackson Vaughn, and Will Zellers. I'll throw it over to you for the D.
Man, I mean, there's a lot of great names on that list, too. And, again, we saw Bartholtson get drafted the other day. He's a really super skilled winger. Super excited to see him at development camp. And, again, a lot of people have been talking about Cooper Simpson. This kid had an outstanding season. We can't wait to see him at the NCAA level alongside Will Zellers. And those are some names I'm really excited about to watch. And, again, there's going to be a lot of great players. And you can't forget about Dean Letourneau, the 6'7" center who had a great season. And a lot of Bruins fans are excited to see what his development looks like heading into next season.
Yeah, Big Dean's a name to keep an eye on. And then, obviously, Will Zellers. He's going to be a stud. He was one of the standouts for the Team USA World Juniors team this year, alongside James Hagens of the Boston Bruins. So let's move on. Let's take a peek at the defensemen here that are listed. We've got Vasek Blanner, who's an interesting name to watch. Max Burkholder, Elliot Gronwald, Luke Johansson, Christian Konstantinsky, Lincoln Krasitsky. They're really challenging me on some of these invite names, I'll tell you what. Dylan McKinnon, Cullen McCrate, Michael Newmeyer, Liam Pedersen, and Jacob Van Deven. Any standouts for you here on this defense list?
I think the biggest standout for me, and maybe the most intriguing player, is Blanar, who Boston drafted last season from Czechia. Again, there wasn't a lot of tape from him coming out when he was drafted, but from what we saw, right, he's an extremely talented player with a high hockey IQ, and Blanar's a guy who just has. You can just watch the tape and you can see he's an extremely talented player. I thought Elliot Grunwald had a great season, and he's a guy who looks pretty steady, and I want to see him get into some preseason games as well, because he's a guy who looked really steady last season, and I'm excited to see him. And then lastly, Jacob Van Detten, who was drafted, big defenseman, very raw player, so I'm excited to see how his development looks. And again, all the fans want to add size onto the back end, and he's a big defenseman.
Yeah, I mean, I think just from raw upside, you have to really keep an eye out at Vash Blanar as well. I mean, you had already kind of alluded to that, but, you know, he was somebody that kind of, once again, wasn't really on anybody's draft boards last year because of his name change. And he went overseas, played at a really high level, ended up having some highlight reel goals. So he's got some of that modern defenseman kind of archetype of good skating, good puck movement, good hands. He's definitely going to be a name to keep an eye on. I do believe he's heading back overseas this year for another season, so he definitely is going to have a little bit more seasoning. It's going to be a little bit more time until you see him in a black and gold uniform. You know, he'll probably, when he does come over to North America, probably start off in Providence, but it's definitely going to be an interesting thing to monitor. Now, one of the funny stories from this draft, and we'll talk about the draft class in a little bit, but one of the funny stories in this draft is that we went a little goalie heavy, right? Early, and we ended up picking up 2 goalies. But if you looked at the preliminary dev camp roster, we only had 2 goalies listed, which, you know, in a vacuum, all you need is 2 goalies, 2 nets, right? But the goalies want a break from time to time. Speaking on behalf of the Goaltenders Union, you know, we like breaks and water breaks, and we don't want to stop everything when we want to go take a quick break. So glad to have 4 goaltenders on the roster here for dev camp. We have Kyle Chavette, which is a UNH invite, so shout out 603, my friends up in New Hampshire. We have draftees Roberto Henriquez and Yuri Ivanov. We'll talk about them in a little bit. And then we also have Max Lundgren, who signed a free agent deal out of Merrimack College after leading the Warriors to a Hockey East championship this year. So these are going to be some fun things to keep an eye on here, too. One of the things that I love about the Boston Bruins organization is just how damn good they are at developing goaltenders.
So
it's just a goalie factory. I mean, you saw Brandon Bussey go and win a Stanley Cup, and he's a product of the Bruins system. Not exclusively, obviously, but, you know, you see him. You see DiPietro, AHL Goalie of the Year. You know, we just have such a great track record of developing
Dan
goaltenders
Vladar
here.
just signed a long-time deal with Philadelphia,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
Another Boston product.
So it would be nice if we could stop developing starting goaltenders for other franchises.
Right.
But, hey, it is what it is. So, yeah, it should be a pretty interesting dev camp to watch. There's going to be a couple notable, or maybe one notable omission here, and that's going to be James Hagens.
James Hagens.
So James Hagens is not here. Don Sweeney mentioned in his press conference recently that there's a variety of reasons for that. I mean, I think it just is mainly about the fact that he's had a lot of hockey this year. He's played a lot. He played a full year at BC, jumps in, plays for Providence, jumps in, plays for the Bruins, jumps in, plays for Team USA in the Worlds. And let's be honest, his roster spot for next year's probably pretty well locked in.
It's pretty locked in at this point, and you know, we think about James Hagens, and like you said, a lot of miles this season, a lot of up and down. Again, spent some time, had a great season in the NCAA, then went to Providence, played some meaningful minutes in Providence, and then went to Boston. And then he got playoff experience. He played at the NHL level. Obviously, that's a crazy jump, right? And then the opportunity to go represent his country at Worlds. And that's a lot of miles. That's a lot of hockey. And again, not surprised to see a guy like James Hagens get a little time off, because we think his roster spot is, well, he's got a pretty good chance to make the roster for next season. And a lot of fans on Bruins media especially have asked me, where do you think James Hagens fits into the roster? And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But he's a great player, and I'm not too surprised he's getting a little time off.
it's kind of a little bit of a bummer for the fans here at Dev Camp that they're not going to be able to see James Hagens, because that was definitely a treat at Dev Camp last season, is being able to see him show up and kind of show off his hands and how he's able to move the puck. But, hey, everybody deserves a break. Like I said, goalie, so I guess James Hagens deserves one too. So good for him. I'm sure that he's hitting the training hard this offseason, as is everybody else. But, that's one noticeable name that will not be here this week. So let's dive in and do a quick draft recap for the Boston Bruins. Obviously we held the 23rd overall selection. That was traded, and we'll break down the trade in a little bit, but let's talk about the picks themselves. So the first pick for the Boston Bruins was at round 2, pick number 56. And everybody was clamoring, when you look at this prospect pool, what's the biggest glaring area of need? Oh, that's got to be the right-handed defenseman. Right D. And what did the Boston Bruins do? They didn't draft the right D. Who did they draft, Cam?
So Boston, with the 56th overall pick, they selected goaltender Yuri Ivanov out of Russia. One of the youngest players in this draft, actually, at 17 years old. So, again, when you look at the Boston Bruins roster, maybe a goaltender isn't something that you think the team needs right now. But, again, he's only 17. He's going to stay in Russia for a couple seasons, and his numbers were sparkling in Russia. He's a very good goaltender, very talented. And, again, was that Boston's biggest need at the draft? Absolutely not. But, obviously, this team believes in this kid, and they obviously have a history of developing goaltenders. So it will be interesting to see what happens with Yuri Ivanov and his development.
Yeah, I mean, you got to also give a nod. When Bob Essenza says he wants somebody, you go and get that guy, right? 100%. I mean, like we just talked about it, the Bruins are a goalie factory. So I definitely think it was a bit of an interesting selection. Chief Scout Ryan Nadeau mentioned that, obviously there's public lists and public boards, and I myself, if you follow me on Twitter, I was pretty vocal about this particular draft pick not really being in alignment with the Boston Bruins. But, hey, obviously Ivanov, he's gone to the Tretiak Academy of Goaltending. He's very, athletic, and like Cam said, the youngest goalie in the draft. So I think I saw something that if he was 4 days younger, or 4 days younger, he would have been in the next draft. He wouldn't even been draft eligible.
Right.
So that's definitely pretty interesting. But here's some of the interesting stats on him: 6'2", 165 pounds. So he's very nimble, a little lean, traditional left catch goaltender. But he will be here in camp, and we're looking forward to seeing what he has to offer. Any closing thoughts on Ivanov?
Yeah, just for the fans that didn't know his numbers, last season he played in the NHL for Spartak, and 13 wins and 3 losses, and a sparkling .924 save percentage with a 2.6 goals against average. And, yeah, that's those numbers, sparkling. Those are fantastic numbers, so I can see why a team like Boston likes the potential of a 17-year-old goaltender with those type of numbers.
And the Boston Bruins, who Don Sweeney came out and he said straight up that they needed to be faster, they needed to be more skilled. They go ahead and hit the draft with a forward here, round 3, pick number 88. They select Niels Bartholdson, 5'11", right shot forward. What do you got on Niels?
Man, this kid is awesome. And third-round pick 88. I don't know if that means anything to anybody. But, again, this kid is built to score. He's fast, and he has a great shot. And, again, really talented player. A guy with a lot of high motor and high upside. He's the type of guy I think that the Bruins fans are going to like in the system. And he can play right wing. And, super talented kid. I am really high on this guy, and I can't wait to see him in Dev Camp.
Yeah, that's going to be a name to keep your eye on here to see the wheels and the hands in development camp today. Bruins end up with they had 3. They had a hat trick of 4th-round picks, but they ended up dealing one away to the Pittsburgh Penguins. So they were next up at pick number 104. And what do? You go back and get another high-potential forward, this one out of Russia. So once again, 2 Russians drafted. I believe Ty Andersson tweeted out that this is the first time that the Bruins have drafted 2 Russians in a draft class since 2002, which is pretty interesting.
That's crazy.
Matvei Kotkov, 6 foot, 183 pounds, left shot forward. I believe he's actually the line mate of Yemelyanov, a
Yes, he
Bruins
is.
draft pick
Yeah,
from
teammate.
last year.
Really talented Russian, Boston selected last year, and again, we're starting to see a trend here with these Russian players coming to Boston, slowly but surely. And yeah, this Kotkov kid has a ton of potential for what I've seen. Obviously, I haven't watched much of his game, but again, from what I've heard from him, high upside player and high goal scorer here. And I'm gonna pull up his stats right now. I mean, he had a great season in Russia, and his stats, I mean, 31 points in 36 games in the MHL, 14 goals, 17 assists. Those are great stats, and I can't wait to see him hopefully get a little time at the international level as well. And he's a guy I can see spending a couple of years overseas, working on his development, and then coming over to Providence potentially in a couple of years. But yeah, really high motor player.
And the Bruins have been just going to the well time and time again on the Swedish side of things. I mean, you see it on the NHL roster with the amount of Swedes that we have right now. But they go at pick 122. They select Oscar Olsson. This one's a little bit bigger of a forward, 6'4", not quite Dean Letourneau size, but 6'4", 167 left shot, Swedish forward. What do you got on Oscar?
From what I've read, Oscar Olsson is one of the most raw players in the draft. Kid's super talented, obviously, and but I've heard big shot, big size, 6'4", could turn out to be your traditional power forward, and he's got a great shot from what I've heard from just the scouts, and yeah, super talented. He was ranked all over the draft board. Elite Prospects had him ranked at 134. Which is interesting, so he went a little before that. McKean Hockey had him ranked at 282. So, again, he's a little bit of a polarizing pick in some ways. But, again, I think this kid has a lot of potential. And, again, he can run the power play from the half wall and has a great release and some elite hand-eye coordination as well. So, again, a lot of potential and a lot of talent on... He's a really polarizing player, and I think he's going to be a nice project for Boston.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're not done then. What do we say that they needed the most going into this draft? Defense.
Defenseman.
Please, for the love of God, draft defense. We need it. And the Boston Bruins do. At pick 157, they draft Jacob Van Deven, defender, 6'6", 207 pounds, left shot D-man. Tell me about Jacob.
Yeah, no, this kid, again, I haven't seen too much of him, but I know Boston fans were crying for a defenseman after the first 3 or 4 picks, and that's what they get. This kid is super, super raw, and, again, great size, played in London, and, again, it'll be interesting to see how he develops. He's your typical stay-at-home, strength defensive defenseman. I think that's what you're going to get out of this kid, and, again, he's played in the OHL, and again, really good league. And we'll see kind of how he develops and into his size. He's only 18, so again, still tons of opportunity to grow into his game. So I'm excited about the potential of the pick.
Yeah, and what do we do after that? Like I said, goalie factory. We grab Roberto Henriquez, 6'2" goaltender, 185 pounds, left catch. One of the most interesting kind of stories for this individual, and we hope to kind of maybe break into this a little bit more in the future, but he is of Slovakian Dominican descent.
Wow.
Which, it doesn't really surprise me. I've never heard of a Slovakian named Roberto Henriquez, but he's a goalie, and he's been playing up, I believe, in the CHL. And he's got a little bit of nasty in him. Apparently, he takes boxing lessons, and that was highlighted by a lot of the clips going around right after the pick, where he landed a few hooks and dropped his goaltending opponent in the fight. It's kind of funny to see. I mean, I'm sure Jeremy Swayman will be a big fan of his game, and he's an interesting goaltender to kind of keep an eye on as well. What are your thoughts on Mr. Henriquez?
Yeah, again, ton of potential with this kid, and he posted great numbers, 921 save percentage. Again, another goaltender that had great stats overseas, and a guy that can continue to add depth to the Bruins goalie system, which is honestly never a bad thing to have too many goalies, especially with goalie Bob as the coach.
And then to wrap up the draft, the Boston Bruins in the round 7, pick 216. They finally draft that right shot defenseman, Cullen McCray, 6'2", 205 pounds. What do we got on Cullen there, Cam?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't hear much about the kid until the draft, but again, right shot defenseman's always a need, and he has prototypical height and weight for a defenseman, which is really impressive. And I think just to add more right-handed depth into the Bruins system is going to be extremely, extremely critical, because right now you can look at their roster. They don't have a ton of right-handed depth in the AHL. So again, just adding more guys that can play that right side is going to be really beneficial for Boston. And he's a guy, we'll see how he develops over the next couple of years. And again, we hope he develops and he can get some valuable minutes and come in and just add some organizational depth to Boston's roster.
So we're going to kind of just put a little bit of a bow on that. Well, I'm sure we'll have plenty of clips and stuff like that to talk about next week when we're going over Dev Camp and some individual takeaways. When we do step away from recording live, we're going to go ahead and take in some of Dev Camp and give our thoughts as well on our socials. Once again, you can follow us on Between Two Rinks on X, on Instagram. You can follow Bruins Media on Instagram as well for more of Cam's takes. You won't hear any insights from me over there because Cam doesn't let me near that Instagram account. But let's kind of talk about the big news on draft day for the Boston Bruins. For those that are, obviously all the season ticket holders here, you're in the Garden. What a news flash that the Boston Bruins are trading 2 first-round picks for JJ Peterka. Cam, tell me a little bit more about what Bruins fans can expect from JJ Peterka.
Boston fans, you guys should be very excited about JJ Peterka. He's a 24-year-old forward and German. He's from Germany, so he's played, Sturm very well. And again, Peterka had a down year in Utah, but if you look into the advanced metrics of a guy like JJ Peterka, one of the best skaters in the NHL. He posted a 90th percentile skating speed with skating speeds over 22 miles an hour, which is really impressive. So what did Neely and Sweeney say? They wanted to get faster, and they wanted more offense. Peterka checks both of those boxes while getting younger. It's a win-win deal. He's 24, and he is one of the best skaters in the NHL. He's also a guy who's not afraid to shoot the puck. If you saw his highlights, guys, he's a guy who is a 30-goal scorer with the right line mates. And again, it will be awesome to see if he plays with David Pastrnak. He's a guy who can drive his own line, so if you want him on the second line, he can do that as well. So you're getting a lot of great things out of JJ Peterka, and I don't think the price was too steep for a guy that is a proven NHL player for potentially 2 late draft picks.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it, 2 late draft picks, right? 23 overall. You're probably got like a 20% chance of that player becoming an impact NHL player. Chances are they're not going to be as impactful as JJ Peterka. And then do you really want to wait until 2028 to make that selection from the Florida pick? I think that, despite me being a little salty because I was at the draft party when we announced the trade because I kind of wanted to see a Boston Bruins draft pick.
Yeah.
But I'm excited about what he can do. JJ Blades is here. Hi, Blades.
Welcome, Blades. Blades
nice
is on the
to
show.
have Blades here. Where JJ Peterka is a high-octane, high-motor, good hands. Very, very excited to see him. It's something that I think David Pastrnak has been missing, right? You saw, the Boston Bruins go out there and try to get some high upside players like Lucas Reichel and other players of that ilk that Don Sweeney was kind of bargain bin shopping, trying to find lightning in a bottle. I think JJ Peterka is pretty much close to a sure thing. And I mean, seeing his finishing ability alongside a guy like David Pastrnak, like, can you just imagine like a Pavel Zacha, David Pastrnak, JJ Peterka line? I think that thing will feed families.
Yeah, that's disgusting. That line would feed families. And again, this is probably you're buying JJ Peterka at his floor, right? Worst comes to worst, he's a 55-point player, but I think his ceiling is probably an 80-point player for Boston. So again, that is super awesome. And JJ Peterka is going to be a fantastic player for the Bruins, and I think his ceiling with David Pastrnak is something really incredible.
Well, it was kind of funny. I mean, leading into it, you had Don Sweeney sitting there saying, hey, we see a lot of movement going. We're eager to participate, I believe is the direct quote. We are eager to participate in the player movement. I mean, because let's be honest, this has been an incredibly tumultuous summer so far in the NHL. The amount of player movement that we're seeing, I mean, a great example of that is that Vegas trade. Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, I mean, Vegas, man, we talked about that organization. They always have something up their sleeves, yes. Correct?
Sure
and, do. Again, this organization's always one step ahead of the game. And, again, trading a guy like Pavel Dorofeyev away, who a guy they probably liked, but probably didn't feel comfortable paying that $11 million price tag. So they ship him off to New York to get value. And, again, this is great for Vegas because they don't – technically it's clearing cap space based on the deal you'd have to bring Dorofeyev in. And it's great for the Rangers because they get a young established player, and that's what that organization needs. So, again, a team like Vegas, not afraid to make that move. And there's no fear to get better by addition, by subtraction sometimes.
Side note, Derek Sanderson's in the building, so great to see him. That's a lot of fun. Pretty cool for me as a big-time Bruins fan seeing him in here. So had to just make a quick comment about that. But yeah, the amount of movement has just been staggering. And I mean, some of the other notable trades. I mean, obviously we're still waiting on the Dylan Larkin thing to fall. That was a really momentous trade request that's come out, and now the Detroit Red Wings have acknowledged that, and so has Dylan Larkin's camp. Man, I would love to see Dylan Larkin in a Bruins uniform, but I'm not sure the black and gold is on his list
at this point.
But yeah, I mean, keep an eye out. I mean, obviously, this is also a big week. This isn't the end of the offseason for the Bruins. I mean, free agency starts on the 1st, and that's only 2 days away. That's going to be Monday. So keep an eye out for that. But speaking of free agency, there are a series of restricted free agents that the Boston Bruins have that are due their qualifying offers. Fabian Lysell was one of them, but obviously the Bruins cut ties with Lysell and sent him over to the Colorado Avalanche in exchange for Ivan, which probably is the best name in the entire league. I mean, who else can have two names that are the same? Ivan squared.
Squared.
But why don't you go ahead and just kind of go through the list of the qualifying offers, Cam?
Sure. So obviously the big name everybody is going to see on the list is Matt Poitras, who, again, Boston fans are kind of wondering what his future is like in this organization. Riley Duran, Mass Kid, also on the list, as well as Alexis Gendron, Max Wanner, Luke Kavalin, like you mentioned, Ivan, another Mass product, Jordan Harris, is also on that list as well, who played some meaningful minutes down the stretch. So, again, we'll see what happens with these guys, but obviously the highlight is Matthew Poitras and that 5 o'clock deadline.
Yeah, I mean, Don Sweeney was asked about Matt Poitras going into this year, and he acknowledged, I mean, Matty Poitras played 70 games in this league. He can play at the NHL level. I mean, we saw him put on a show at the Stadium Series down in Tampa this previous season. I mean, that was a beautiful backhand goal. And who does he beat? None other than Andrei Vasilevsky with that shot on one of the biggest stages. So it wouldn't surprise me whatsoever if we saw Matty Poitras end up earning a spot on this roster for next year. But I do believe that he's going to be issued a qualifying offer. I believe he's probably going to want to have a really realistic conversation with Don Sweeney about his chances about sticking on this roster. I mean, that's probably some of the feedback that the Bruins org got from Fabian Lysell, is that it wasn't a realistic path for him ever. So keep an eye out for Matty Poitras. Do you have any thoughts on Poitras?
I do. I think a guy like Poitras is going to have the ability to make this team out of camp, and he's a guy I can truly see playing on the third line for Boston, whether it be in a center or wing position, maybe on a line with Elias Lindholm, and if it's a free agent winger they bring in, or if Casey Middlestad's still around. Again, that could be a pretty good third line, and again, Matt Poitras is a super talented player, and I would love to see him get a chance to earn the opportunity this preseason and try to establish some pretty consistent minutes.
Yeah, and the other name that kind of sticks out to me, I think a lot of these guys need to be back just because of Providence. You know, Riley Duran's going to end up probably back in Providence if he doesn't, end up wanting to test the waters elsewhere. Ivan is going to be issued a qualifying offer. You don't trade away Fabian Lysell for Ivan and not plan to keep him involved. And honestly, I think Ivan's a good candidate for that fourth line battle in camp that you'll see later on this summer. I mean, he played meaningful minutes on a very deep Colorado forward core. So I I think that's a name that'll definitely get a qualifying offer. The other name, obviously, is Jordan Harris. I actually really liked Jordan Harris's season until it was derailed by that injury last year. And it's always good to see, local guys do well. He's a Northeastern product from Haverhill. Good puck mover, pick of the Montreal Canadiens. And I just think that he was kind of shelved a little bit after that injury, and he never kind of got back to up to speed.
No, I agree. And Jordan Harris looked really great out of camp last season, and he looked really good when he was in the lineup before that injury. And like you said, kind of maybe lost a step or two after getting injured and coming back. He didn't get to play a lot when he came back from injury, and he was kind of thrown into the fire for that playoff game where the Bruins got dismantled by Buffalo. So again, it will be really interesting to see what his future is like, and if Boston has the opportunity to bring him back, and does he have a spot with this organization? What is their plan to revamp the defense, and will he have a spot here at the NHL level?
So that's something we're going to have to keep an eye out for. By, like I said, the deadline for the qualifying offers on those RFAs is 5 p.m. today. So we'll see who's going to be sticking around, who's not going to be issued a qualifying offer, and will become an unrestricted free agent. So a couple of fun little things to kind of touch on, Cam, right off the hop here. So far, and obviously we still have a lot of offseason to go through, but any biggest surprises for you from the Boston Bruins so far?
The Peterka trade definitely caught me off guard, right? I mean, I was just hanging out with some buddies, and I was like, oh, wow, they traded for JJ Peterka, who, I mean, maybe a regular fan might not know too much about his game, but if you watched the Bruins versus the Sabres a couple years ago, you're definitely familiar with JJ Peterka's game, and I'm super excited to bring him in, and I'm glad they brought in a legitimate top 6 player who can play with David Pastrnak or go drive his own line on the second line. So again, that was the biggest surprise for me. But
I just one more thing on the Peterka thing. It was so funny. When I told my daughter about the move, because she's like, well, I wanted to watch a draft pick. I was like, well, let's look at this guy's highlight reel. And I pulled the JJ Peterka highlight reel. And I swear, like 4 of the goals were against the Bruins.
Oh, yep. I've seen a couple of them. So fast.
Yeah,
great
and
player.
He has a nasty one-timer off, like from bad angles. So that was really kind of funny. But anyway, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead if you have more thoughts.
No, that's great. I mean, that's what you're going to get out of JJ Peterka as well. Straight head speed. He's going to bring that aspect to the team, which obviously fans have been saying for the past year. They're JJ Peterka, man. He's going to fit that build for what fans want. And super excited to see him with that speed, and again, high volume shooter. And Boston wants more goals from, besides David Pastrnak and Morgan Geekie, right? So you're going to get a little bit of everything while the player is only 24 years old. I think it's a match made in heaven.
Yeah, and I already kind of mentioned it, but my biggest surprise was the fact that they went to the goalie well twice in this draft. I mean, organizational depth-wise, you have Jeremy Swayman, who's going to be here for the next 5, 10, 15 seasons. You have, DiPietro, who's the AHL goaltender of the year, probably due to be promoted to the NHL. He deserves to play in the NHL at this point. You have Jonas Korpisalo, who, rebounded really, really well this previous season. Yeah. I mean, he probably deserves more playing time and better than getting stuck behind, a Vezina finalist and Jeremy Swayman. So it wouldn't surprise me if maybe the Bruins look at an offseason deal to move Jonas Korpisalo to another team. But and I mean, then you have Lundgren, who just signed a free agent deal. We have the Czech kid, Zajiček.
Yeah, he had a great year in Providence.
Yeah,
he just signed on a deal.
So he just extended for a 1-season, 2-year. And, with them kind of tilling the soil a little bit in Providence, it's going to be an interesting kind of approach to see how development shifts down there and what that kind of looks like. But, that definitely was my biggest surprise, was them going goaltender twice in the draft when they opted to skip out on it entirely last offseason. So, so far, Cam, let's go ahead and give a quick grade on the Boston Bruins activity in the draft. What are your thoughts?
Right now, I would give the offseason grade a B-. I like the Peterka acquisition, and I did like some of the draft picks, but I do think there's tons of holes for Boston to add to, right? The right shot defenseman is a glaring hole, and the question mark remains, is Jonathan Aspero a long-term asset for a guy to play with Charlie McAvoy? So, again, those are the questions right now I have. And, again, there's plenty of time for those positional needs to be addressed.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think I'd have to say B-. I kind of was hoping that we'd be a little bit more involved in some of the bigger names out there. I would love to see them involved on Dylan Larkin. I would have loved to see them involved on some of the other. I know that this is going to be controversial, and I apologize in advance. But we talked about it before. Vinny Trocheck's a name that I would love to see on this club too. Price, obviously, taken into account. If it's a reasonable acquisition price, I think he fits in that third line center pretty well. But we're also seeing a lot of talk about Darnell Nurse, with Boston being one of the 3 teams on his trade list too. So I'm fascinated to see how that kind of shakes out. Do the Bruins see enough value in Darnell Nurse? Will a change of scenery away from the goaltending black hole that the Edmonton Oilers are do him good? What are your thoughts on the rumored Darnell Nurse interest?
So again, there's a couple things here with Darnell Nurse. First thing being, he is a left shot defenseman. He is 31 years old, and he does have a cap hit of over $9 million. So again, that's a very, very high command. Now, there is a world where I do see Boston shipping a guy like Jonas Korpisalo to Edmonton. And Edmonton retaining 25-50% to go acquire a guy like Darnell Nurse. And again, from what I've heard from some Oilers fans, obviously they're probably a little biased as well. He hasn't had his prototypical last couple of years. He's a guy who can eat heavy minutes, and he's a guy who can skate around. That's what I've heard from one Oilers fan. Shout out Mug NHL. But he told me that yesterday about Darnell Nurse. So again, is he going to be a guy that is a perfect fit? I don't know, but he could be a guy that could log 25 minutes a night alongside Charlie McAvoy.
Yeah, absolutely. Some free agents. Let's talk some free agent stuff here. Obviously, Wednesday is going to be the opening of unrestricted free agency. And there's going to be some interesting targets out there. I mean, the Bruins are rumored to be interested in pending free agent defenseman Rasmus Andersson. Bruins were interested in him. Oh, I see your face.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, let's jump in. I got to get your feedback. What are your thoughts?
Rasmus Andersson. So, again, we all know he got traded to Vegas this season for exchange for Zach Whitecloud and draft picks. And now, do I think Rasmus Andersson is a great player? Absolutely. He's a very talented player. He had a great year for Vegas until the playoffs. Then he didn't have a great postseason. But I don't think he is what Boston needs. He's a guy that's going to command probably $9 million on the open market. And again, he does fill a void. He could play with Hampus Lindholm on that second pair. But I'm not sure if a 30-year-old defenseman who isn't the best defensive defenseman in the world is a fit for Boston. And I just don't want to overpay for somebody who I don't think is going to be a fantastic fit. Now, that being said, I do see Boston making a move to go acquire a guy like Rasmus Andersson. I do see him. Boston has had interest in him in the past. So, again, we'll see what happens here with this player.
Yeah, and it's not just that he's a good fit, I think. Maybe not the contract side of things. Contract aside, I do believe Rasmus Andersson is a good fit for this roster. But one of the interesting things that I think that we'll have to keep an eye out on was the fact that the Boston Bruins' pursuit of Rasmus Andersson was so in the public eye. It felt like it was every other day we saw a report that it was down to the Bruins and somebody else on Andersson. The Bruins are given exclusive rights to negotiate an extension with Andersson that ended up not getting across the line for XYZ reasons. But it's going to be definitely a fascinating thing to keep an eye on. I always feel like when the Bruins have smoke, there's fire, right? I mean,
100%.
And now that he's going to be hitting unrestricted free agency, it wouldn't surprise me whatsoever if we see his name on the Bruins transaction list on Wednesday.
No, 100%. Another name that I've heard circulating slightly, it's confirmed that Anaheim's not bringing him back, and his name's Jacob Trouba. A lot of fans know him, 32-year-old defenseman who had 35 points this year for the Anaheim Ducks. Does bring a physical element to his game as well, and could be a guy that plays on that second pair with a guy like Hampus Lindholm. What are your thoughts on a guy like Jacob Trouba's name?
Jacob Trouba is interesting, and one of the things that keep an eye on about him is that there's so many Canadian franchises that need defensemen this offseason. He won't go to Canada. He will not go to Canada because of his his family situation. I believe his wife is practicing medicine, and she's in New York, so he wants to be as close to New York as possible. I do think that when Jacob Trouba is not utilized as a top pair defenseman, I believe that Jacob Trouba is a very effective NHLer. And can you imagine a Bruins blue line that has Nikita Zadorov, Charlie McAvoy when he's actually looking to make hits, and Jacob Trouba? Like, that would be not a defense core I would want to play against.
No.
And I mean, like, it goes right with what Don Sweeney and Cam Neely were talking about a couple off seasons ago. Every time that another team rolls into TD Garden, they want the Boston Bruins to be a difficult team to play against. And I do believe that Trouba will fit the bill on that regard.
No, 100%. And we think about a team like Florida getting bigger with Brady Tkachuk and Garnet Hathaway coming to town. Carolina's obviously stacked up as well. They just re-signed Delorier. Boston does want to be, you want to have that blend of speed and skill in your top six and toughness on defense. And I think Jacob Trouba would be a great fit depending on term. Now, if it was a 3 to 4 year deal, because he is 32, anything over, 5 years might be a little bit of a difficult conversation. But if a guy you can bring in for 3 to 4 years and kind of he can settle down in a place for him and his family at the end of his career, I think it could be a match made in heaven.
You tell me Trouba's only 32?
Yeah, Jacob Trouba is only 32 years old.
That is, I feel like he's been in the league forever.
I know. His stint with Winnipeg, and then that situation of getting out of Canada to go to New York. And
Captain of the Rangers.
Captain of the Rangers. I think it's a great fit, personally.
Interesting. Yeah, I for some reason in my brain, I just thought he was older than what he was. But that's interesting. Another name, the Anaheim Ducks are going to be fascinating to watch this offseason because I feel like 80% of their blue line are walking away in free agency.
Right.
They went out and they acquired John Carlson from the Capitals in a big deal. And, he has since been dealt away from the Ducks over to the Carolina Hurricanes. So the Hurricanes have the negotiating rights to John Carlson. Carlson still hasn't signed that contract yet, which is really, really interesting.
It'll be interesting to see if he does hit the market.
Yeah, so with the fact that he hasn't signed that contract with Carolina yet, it wouldn't surprise me whatsoever if John Carlson ends up hitting the open market on the first. I kind of froze up there for a second because Don Sweeney just walked by. So I would love to pick his brain on a few things. Let me just say that. But yeah, the other name that's kind of something interesting to keep an eye on, and once again, it kind of goes into that tough blue line that we're seeing the Bruins really prioritize. Radko Gudas.
That's another name I was just about to
on the
bring
market.
up.
Can you imagine? Like, speaking of tough defense that you don't want to deal with, Radko Gudas in a black and gold uniform. You see what Florida Panthers are doing right now. They're becoming rat capital. I mean, you got to have something to kind of answer that. So, what are your thoughts on Gudas?
I'm not sure if I'd want Gudas on that top four role, but if I could bring him and Zadorov in on that bottom pair together, could you imagine them going at it against Florida and those bigger teams? I mean, this division has gotten tougher and tougher. So if we can add toughness to defense with skill up front, it could be a great recipe for success.
Yeah. And then, what about the forwards side of things? Any forwards that are kind of interesting to you?
There's a lot of the names on the market have left via sign and trade, right? We just saw Alex Tuck sign with the Washington Capitals on a long-term extension, right? But there's a couple names that are potentially interesting. First and foremost, from what we've seen, Jack Drury and Beck Malenstein just both got 5 to 6 year deals with big term. So this tells me this free agency class is going to be an expensive one, even for those bottom 6 guys. But there's a couple names that I do find intriguing. The first name up is Mason Marchment from the Columbus Blue Jackets, 6'5", really talented player, only 31 years old, and he's had multiple 20-goal seasons. Again, he kind of fits the bill. He could play in the middle six and provide some depth, and he could be really effective in front of the net on the power play. What's your thoughts on a guy like Mason Marchment?
I think that, Columbus obviously really, really liked what Marchment brought to the table, and the rumor has it that they're still actively negotiating with his club or with his squad over there. But I don't know a whole lot about the player. I think he's a good bottom 6 guy. Yeah. I feel like we've got a glut of those right now.
Too many.
Right? You know, now we have Ivan in the mix as well. I love our fourth line personally. I think that, you know, we have one of the top fourth lines in the league. They can go out there, they can beat you by playing hockey, and they can also beat the crap out of you, which is a lot of fun to watch. But, you know, I think I'd steer clear of these developmental or these fourth line kind of character guys. I'd rather see some of our guys that are already in the system in Providence trying to knock on the door have an opportunity for those spots rather than grab a guy that's a fourth line player.
No, I agree. And I think I would like to see a guy like Matt Poitras try to earn that job out of camp. And I want to see how a guy like Don Zlokmelis progresses through his injury. Because if he was healthy, he would be a guy I would love to see make the roster out of camp. He has great speed and good defensive play. Again, Victor Arvidsson's name's still out there as well. If he's going to return to Boston, we'll talk about that in a second as well. So, again, it will be really interesting to see. One final name, 27-year-old Ilya Tolvanen from Seattle. Again, another name that has been maybe subtly linked to Boston. I'm not sure if he's going to re-sign with Seattle or not. So, again, there's some names out there, but, again, I'm not sure if I'm willing to pay the price for some of these free agents.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned it earlier. You know, some of these older players in free agency, what they're looking for is security. They're looking for term. You know, you saw Darren Radish get dealt in a sign-and-trade to Toronto. He's 30 years old, and he got an 8-year contract. So he just signed a deal till he's 38 years old. So these players,
he's set.
Yeah, I mean they're looking for the term, and probably maybe some term that's going to make you uncomfortable. I don't think that in the longer term deals the cap's really going to hurt you too much. You know, with the salary cap continuing to rise, and I mean especially with. I mean, we'll talk about this. We got a lot of summer to talk about, not so much news. So we're going to be talking about this specific topic a lot too. But with the rumored expansion that may be coming as well, that's going to be a big jolt in the arm for the league for hockey-related revenue, and that will end up increasing the salary cap even more. So I'm not too worried about the dollars and cents. I mean, we did see a lot of people back when the Bruins signed, you know, Elias Lindholm and Nikita Zadorov, that there were some concerns about AAV. That's not a concern at this point, so I'm not too worried about that. It's just the term that's a little scary.
No, 100%. I think the term is always going to be a thing, and especially when Boston has gone out and spent large term on players. But that's kind of the market right now. If you're going to go get one of these guys, and they're going to want 5 to 6 years on their deals, and they want a place where they can have some security and maybe even a contract clause as well.
So the other kind of big name, and I saw somebody in the Bruins media chat actually mention this, you know, it's going to be fascinating. You're kind of seeing like a little bit of a mass exodus with player movement across the league right now, specifically with the Team USA Olympic team. You know, you see, you know, geez, my brain's not working. Anyways, the rumored is that Zach Werenski of the Columbus Blue Jackets has made it clear that he is not interested in extending with the Blue Jackets. And he's the reigning Norris Trophy winner for the best defenseman in the NHL. Would Werenski, who was paired with McAvoy, not be a perfect fit for this Boston Bruins team?
Oh, my gosh. That would be an incredible fit for Boston. Obviously, Zach Werenski, right in his prime, is probably a top 3 defenseman in the NHL. You can make your case, right? And obviously him and McAvoy have a history playing together for Team USA. Obviously, the price to acquire a guy like that is going to be very substantial, but wouldn't that be a perfect fit if Boston wanted to go acquire a top pair defenseman for Charlie McAvoy?
Yeah, and I do think defense maybe isn't the biggest area of need for this club right now, but when a player like that becomes available, I'd even label Werenski as generational. I mean, the reason why you don't hear that name much is because he plays in a market like Columbus. You know, if you had Zach Werenski in Chicago, right, or in Toronto or Montreal
or New York,
or New York,
can you imagine?
Like, it would just be staggering. So I really wonder, does Werenski want to go to the same clubs that everybody else wants to go to? Does he want to go to Florida? Does he want to go to Tampa with a no tax?
Or Dallas,
yeah. You know, because he could go play with Jake Ottinger. But I mean, can Charlie McAvoy and Jeremy Swayman start like wooing some of their teammates to come to Boston, please?
Yeah.
That would be a nice change of pace.
That would be. I think Werenski would be perfect in Boston. And, again, I know he's meeting with management to kind of discuss his future, and I'm sure there'll be a ton of teams interested in acquiring him and his services. He's incredible.
Well, I think probably good to start wrapping up here. I want to go watch this dev camp myself,
Yeah, me
but
too.
it's been an absolute treat being here at Warrior Ice Arena, rubbing elbows with some of the Bruins fans, Bruins legends, Bruins management at this point. Obviously, Blades as well. We can't forget about Blades, right? So we are excited to digest the free agents frenzy in a little bit. We are probably going to look at going live for the free agency event as well on Wednesday, so keep an eye out for that. We'll be live on YouTube and Twitch and Instagram as well. But yeah, on behalf of Between Two Rinks and everybody here, thanks so much for listening in, and make sure you follow us on socials. We're on Instagram, we're on X, we're on YouTube, we're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts. Anywhere you find your podcast media, you can find us. Any closing thoughts, Cam?
Man, this was a shout out to the Bruins. This is such a great event. Thank you for having us. And again, free agency on Wednesday, a lot to look forward to, a lot of stories. Stay in touch and follow Bruins Media for the best Boston Bruins news on Instagram.
Awesome. Thank you very much, guys. We will talk to you guys later. Peace.